Growth is not pretty. It's not peaceful. It's war. Real self-development doesn't make you calm. It makes you confront everything you've been running from. It burns your illusions, your comfort, your false confidence. Most people don't want growth. They want comfort disguised as progress. But comfort kills evolution. You're not here to feel good. You're here to get strong. Because the person you fear becoming, the cold, disciplined, unshakable version of you, isn't your enemy. It's your destiny. This is your guide to transformation. The real kind, the painful kind, the kind that breaks you before it builds you. Welcome to becoming the person you fear to be. Chapter 1. Comfort is the enemy. Comfort feels safe, familiar, and easy. It's warm, it's predictable, it's the place where your brain tells you to stay because survival feels easier there. But what feels safe is often what's slowly destroying you. Comfort doesn't build strength. It dulls it. It erases your edge, numbs your hunger, and convinces you that standing still is good enough. You start to believe that peace equals progress, but that's the biggest illusion of modern life. Comfort doesn't bring peace, it brings decay. The longer you stay there, the weaker you become, and the more your potential dies in silence. Growth doesn't live in comfort, it lives in friction, in resistance, in repetition. The people you admire, the ones who've built unshakable confidence and unstoppable success, are not addicted to comfort. They're addicted to challenge. They've learned that the only place where real change happens is where pain meets persistence. Every time you choose struggle over ease, you strengthen your identity. Every time you choose discomfort over distraction, you feed the part of you that's capable of becoming something greater. Comfort whispers lies that sound like love. It says, you deserve a break. It says, you've done enough. It says, you'll start tomorrow. And those whispers feel good because they protect your ego. But those same whispers destroy your evolution. Every time you listen to them, you reinforce weakness. You build a mind that seeks avoidance instead of adaptation. And the longer you entertain those whispers, the more you drift from who you could have been. Look around you, society is addicted to comfort. The phone in your hand, the food at your door, the dopamine you scroll for, everything is built to make you feel good instantly. But instant comfort kills long-term growth. The mind that always needs ease becomes fragile. The body that avoids strain becomes soft. The spirit that never faces resistance loses direction. The truth is simple. If it's easy, it's empty. The things that challenge you are the only things that change you. You have to train yourself to see discomfort differently. Don't run from it, run toward it. The workout you don't want to do. The conversation you've been avoiding. The project that scares you. The discipline you keep delaying. These aren't punishments. They're invitations to evolve. Each one is a test designed to reprogram your mind, to teach it that discomfort is not danger. It's data. It's feedback. It's the signal that you're growing, stretching, and moving into new territory. Comfort builds nothing. It's a slow poison disguised as pleasure. You can spend your whole life chasing it, chasing the easy job, the convenient relationship, the safe dream, and wake up one day realizing you traded your potential for peace that never truly existed. Comfort feels good now, but it costs you later. Discomfort feels painful now, but it pays you later. The trade is always there, every single day, short-term comfort or long-term strength. You can't have both. There's a reason the gym hurts. There's a reason waking up early burns. There's a reason building discipline feels like war. Your brain is wired to conserve energy, to avoid what feels hard, to keep you in the zone of familiarity. But that same instinct that once kept your ancestors alive is now keeping you small. You're not supposed to be safe, you're supposed to evolve. Growth requires tension. Progress requires pressure. If you feel the friction, it means you're exactly where you need to be. When you stay comfortable for too long, your standards shrink. You start accepting mediocrity not because you want it, but because you've forgotten what effort feels like. You convince yourself that comfort equals contentment, but contentment without challenge is just disguised decline. Life will always test you, but the question is, are you testing yourself? Are you voluntarily stepping into the uncomfortable spaces that force you to adapt, or are you waiting for life to do it for you? Because if you wait, life will eventually rip comfort away, and by then you'll be too weak to fight back. Real growth starts when you stop chasing what feels good and start doing what's required. It's when you wake up tired and train anyway. When you face rejection and keep building. When you want to quit but decide to repeat. These are the small, invisible moments where strength is built. The mind that resists comfort and embraces discomfort becomes unbreakable. Every time you push through, you reinforce the neural pathways of resilience. Every time you choose effort over ease, you program the identity of a warrior, not a victim. Comfort gives you nothing. Discomfort gives you everything. Comfort teaches avoidance. Discomfort teaches adaptation. Comfort gives you sleep. Discomfort gives you growth. Comfort rewards you with temporary pleasure. Discomfort rewards you with permanent transformation. If you want to become someone powerful, peaceful, and purposeful, you must walk straight into discomfort and make it your home. The pain you feel in pursuit of progress is not there to punish you, it's there to purify you. Think about your life right now. Where are you choosing comfort over growth? What are you avoiding because it's hard, because it's uncertain, because it demands more of you? Those are the exact places where your next level is hiding. You don't need a new plan, you need to stop running from friction. You need to lean into it, because the friction you fear is the fire that forges your future. The next time you hesitate because something feels uncomfortable, remember this. Your comfort zone is not your friend, it's your cage. It's the invisible prison that keeps you repeating the same days, the same thoughts, the same results. The key to freedom is discomfort. The more you face it, the larger your world becomes. Every step into discomfort expands your limits. Every act of resistance against ease reclaims your power. Every hard choice you make redefines who you are. The path of real self-development is not soft, not glamorous, not effortless. It's painful, lonely, and demanding, but it's worth it. Because on the other side of discomfort lives the version of you that no longer breaks under pressure, no longer runs from difficulty, no longer fears failure. That version of you is not found in comfort, it's forged in chaos. So stop protecting your weakness with comfort. Stop confusing peace with paralysis. Stop feeding the lie that safety equals success. The truth is, everything you want, discipline, confidence, control, purpose, lives beyond comfort. You just have to be brave enough to go get it. Because comfort won't give you power. We'll take it from you. Comfort won't make you better, it will make you forget what better even feels like. Chapter 2. Face yourself first. The hardest battle you'll ever fight isn't out there, it's in the mirror. It's not against the people who doubt you, not against the obstacles that block you, but against the reflection staring back at you every single morning. That reflection knows everything, the lies you tell yourself, the habits you hide, the excuses you justify. You can deceive the world, but you can't deceive yourself. And that's where real self-development begins, not in motivation, not in hustle, but in brutal honesty. You can't fix what you refuse to face. Most people spend their lives running from themselves. They distract, they numb, they hide. They fill their silence with noise because silence exposes truth. It reveals what you've been avoiding, your fears, your weaknesses, your guilt, your potential. And facing that truth is terrifying. It's uncomfortable because it strips away the stories you've built to protect your ego. But until you face yourself, you'll keep repeating the same cycles, the same mistakes, the same pain. Self-awareness is not a soft skill, it's a survival skill. It's the foundation of transformation. Without it, discipline becomes delusion and effort becomes escape. You can grind endlessly, work tirelessly, but if you're not self-aware, you'll keep chasing goals that mean nothing. You'll keep running from your pain instead of learning from it. Growth begins the moment you stop pointing fingers outward and start turning the mirror inward. Facing yourself is not about judgment, it's about clarity. It's about seeing your flaws without shame, your patterns without denial, your limits without excuses. It's about asking hard questions. Why do I keep avoiding discomfort? Why do I chase validation instead of purpose? Why do I keep breaking promises to myself? These questions are not meant to hurt you, they're meant to heal you. Because every time you face the truth, you reclaim a piece of your power. The mind loves to hide behind stories. It says, I can't change because of my past, or I'll start when I feel ready, or this is just who I am. These stories feel true because they protect you from pain. But pain is the price of progress. You don't heal by hiding. You heal by confronting. You become powerful when you can sit with your flaws without running from them. The strongest people aren't the ones who never fall, they're the ones who look at their own damage and say, "This ends with me." When you face yourself, you expose the lies that hold you back. You start to see how much of your life has been built on fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. And once you see it, you can no longer pretend. That's the moment change begins. Not when you feel motivated, but when you feel disgusted with your own avoidance. Self-confrontation creates discomfort, and discomfort creates clarity. Facing yourself requires courage. It means accepting that you are both the problem and the solution. It means acknowledging that your patterns, your thoughts, and your choices are shaping your reality every single day. It means taking responsibility, not just for your success, but for your failures, your habits, your emotions, and your reactions. Responsibility is not blame, it's ownership. It's the point where growth begins. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I proud of the way I think? Am I proud of how I respond under pressure? Am I proud of the promises I keep to myself? If the answer is no, good. That discomfort is your compass. It's showing you where to grow. Every time you face your reflection honestly, you strip away a layer of weakness and build a layer of strength. You can't outrun your reflection. You can change your environment, your job, your relationships. But if you don't change yourself, you'll recreate the same problems everywhere you go. The external world mirrors the internal one. Chaos outside often means chaos inside. Until you fix the root, the symptoms will always return. Facing yourself means dealing with the root, the patterns you repeat, the beliefs you hold, the emotions you suppress. Facing yourself isn't a one-time act. It's a daily discipline. Every morning when you wake up, you meet your reflection again, and that reflection asks you silently, are you living in alignment today? Some days the answer will be yes, other days it will be no. That's okay. What matters is that you keep showing up for that question. You keep checking your code, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. That's how you stay clean from the inside out. There's no transformation without confrontation. You can't build a stronger self on top of denial. You have to tear down the lies you've built. You have to face your fears, your insecurities, your envy, your laziness. Every time you admit a truth, you strip power away from weakness. Every time you acknowledge your flaws, you take control of them. Denial keeps you trapped. Awareness sets you free. And remember, facing yourself doesn't mean hating yourself. It means holding yourself accountable with compassion. It's saying, I can do better, not, I'm worthless. It's saying, I was wrong, not, I'm broken. True strength comes from integrating both sides of you, the light and the dark. You can't destroy your shadow, but you can understand it, train it, and use it as fuel. Your reflection is your teacher. It shows you who you are and who you can become. When you finally stop running, when you finally look yourself in the eye and accept what you see, you unlock a new level of power. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself, you stop living small. You can't improve what you won't inspect. You can't evolve what you won't expose. You can't rise above what you refuse to admit. Real transformation begins when you stop blaming, stop pretending, and start reflecting. So face yourself first. Not your job, not your enemies, not your problems, yourself. Because every external challenge is just a reflection of an internal one. Once you win the battle inside, the world outside has no power over you. Repeat this until it's part of you. You can't outrun your reflection. Face it, fix it, and rebuild it. Chapter 3. Break your limits, not your promises. Your mind carries invisible chains. They are not made of metal, but of belief, habit, and fear. They whisper every day, stop. Not today. Wait until it feels right. They hide in comfort, in repetition, and excuses. They convince you that your current ceiling is reality, that limits are permanent, that effort beyond a certain point is pointless. But those chains are lies, illusions that your weak self clings to so it can survive. Real growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from breaking those invisible chains, from acting when your mind screams to stay safe, from pushing past the barriers you've allowed to define your life. Limits are often self-imposed. They are born from habit, from fear of judgment, from the I can't that you repeated so many times it became truth. Every time you listen to it, you reinforce those chains. Every time you settled for convenience instead of challenge, you let your limits grow taller. But here's the truth: you are stronger than you believe. Every action taken outside your comfort zone, every deliberate choice to move despite doubt, every time you push just a little harder than yesterday shatters one of those chains. Growth is not in avoidance, it's in confrontation. Breaking limits doesn't mean breaking yourself. It doesn't mean recklessness or impatience. It means measured courage, disciplined effort, and unrelenting persistence. You test the boundaries of your current self, step by step, rep by rep, decision by decision. You keep promises to yourself. Wake up when you said you would, train when you committed, speak when you promised action. Each fulfilled promise reinforces that you are capable of more than yesterday, that the limits you believed in were never real. They were temporary constructs your mind allowed. The mind loves patterns. It hates unpredictability. Your limits are patterns, habits disguised as boundaries. They thrive on repetition, on comfort, on the daily excuses that seem harmless until years have passed. But each time you act outside those patterns, you teach your brain that it can adapt, that it can endure, that it can exceed. Every deliberate step forward is a strike against the old programming. You do not have to fight it with anger, fight it with action. One consistent choice is stronger than 1,000 moments of inspiration. Your past self is both ally and adversary. That version of you set the ceiling, your habits, your fears, your compromises. Today you are responsible for breaking that ceiling. The weak self whispers doubt. You're tired, it's too hard, wait until tomorrow. But the strong self moves. It honors promises. It values integrity more than comfort. It understands that momentum builds on reliability, not emotion. The strongest people are not those who never fail. They are those who keep their promises, even when failure seems likely. Every limit you shatter begins with awareness. You must see it to break it. You must identify the thoughts, the excuses, the patterns that have held you back. You cannot fight what you cannot recognize. Once identified, you meet it with action. Action dissolves fear, dismantles doubt, and rewrites habit. Consistency becomes your weapon. Discipline becomes your shield. Each promise kept, each repetition executed, weakens the chains. Each promise broken, each excuse followed, reinforces them. Your life is a reflection of your choices, and each day is an opportunity to smash the ceiling imposed by your past self. Pain will follow growth. Resistance will intensify as you step beyond comfort. Your mind will try to convince you to return, to shrink, to accept limits again. That is natural. Strength is not the absence of resistance. It is persistence despite it. You do not wait for courage. You generate it through action. You do not wait for confidence. You build it by showing up, by finishing, by honoring the promises you made to yourself, day after day. Limits are temporary, promises are permanent. You break the limits by acting when your mind says stop, by moving when your body wants rest, by saying yes to growth and no to convenience. You honor your promises to yourself, and in doing so, you construct a self that is capable, relentless, and unbreakable. Growth becomes inevitable when action surpasses fear, when discipline overrides doubt, and when promises outweigh excuses. Remember, your limits do not define you, they reveal the boundaries of your comfort zone. Every time you step beyond them, you redefine who you are. You learn that what once seemed impossible is possible. You realize that fear was a compass pointing to growth, not a warning to retreat. You discover that the person you were yesterday was merely a setup for the person you are becoming today. Break your limits, honor your promises, redefine yourself every day. Chapter 4. The fear you feel is the path you need. Fear is not your enemy. It is a compass, a guide, a signal flashing brightly whenever you approach the edge of your comfort zone. The very feelings that make your chest tighten, your palms sweat, and your mind hesitate are often pointing you toward your next level. What you fear most is usually what you need most. That moment, that decision, that challenge that ignites anxiety in your body, inside it lies growth, opportunity, and transformation. The weak mind interprets fear as danger, as a reason to stop. The strong mind sees fear for what it is: a marker, a pointer, a challenge designed to reveal what you are capable of when you refuse to quit. Every time you shrink from fear, it grows. Every time you allow discomfort to dictate your decisions, you reinforce weakness. Fear wants to protect you, yes, but it also wants to imprison you. It thrives in avoidance. It whispers, "Not now. Wait until you're ready. Stay small." The reality is this: you will never feel fully ready. The mind will always invent reasons to hesitate. True growth happens when you step forward anyway, when you act with fear still in your chest, when you move toward the very thing that makes your stomach twist and your heart pound. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is motion in spite of it. Think about the moments in your life when fear tried to stop you. Opportunities passed by because you let the trembling in your body dictate your choices. The uncomfortable conversation was avoided. The challenge at work was ignored. The new habit was postponed. Each avoidance was a vote for comfort and against growth. Each avoidance reinforced the old you, the one willing to settle, the one willing to remain within invisible chains. You can't build strength by retreating. Strength is forged in the fire of discomfort, and fear is that fire. The people who achieve extraordinary results don't feel fearless. They feel the same fear you feel. The difference is what they do with it. They let fear guide them, not bind them. They step forward into uncertainty, knowing that the outcome is secondary to the act of confronting the fear itself. Every time you choose courage over avoidance, you expand your boundaries. You rewire your brain to associate discomfort with progress rather than danger. That is how leaders are built, how innovators rise, how the unbreakable become unstoppable. Fear is also a mirror. It shows you what matters most. What you fear most is usually aligned with your next opportunity, your greatest challenge, or your highest potential. Ignore it and you ignore your growth. Embrace it and you unlock the next version of yourself. When your mind says, "Stop, this is too hard," that is exactly when you need to lean in. When your body says, "Retreat, it's uncomfortable," that is exactly when you need to move forward. Fear is not the wall you stumble into. It is the doorway you walk through. This path is not easy. You will feel the trembling, the tension, the doubt. You will ask yourself why you are doing it, and your mind will search for escape. That is normal. Growth is never comfortable. Every layer of fear you confront and move through strengthens your mental, emotional, and physical resilience. The more you run toward it, the smaller fear becomes and the larger your capacity grows. Fear loses its grip when you refuse to obey it, when you treat it as a guide rather than a jailer. Remember, action breeds courage. Every step into what scares you reprograms your mind. You learn that discomfort is not fatal, that anxiety is not the enemy, that trembling does not equal weakness. You discover that each time you choose to move forward despite fear, you honor the promise you made to your stronger self, the one who refuses to be limited by imagined walls. Courage, after all, is a habit built by repetition. One brave act reinforces the next, until the voice of fear becomes a whisper, and then merely a sound to acknowledge before moving anyway. Do not confuse fear with failure. Feeling fear does not mean you are unprepared or inadequate. It means you are alive, you are pushing, you are in the arena where transformation occurs. The weak self shrinks at this sound, but the strong self leans in, embraces the shaking knees and moves. Step after step, choice after choice, action after action. You walk through the fear, not around it. You honor yourself, your potential, and your mission by refusing to let fear dictate the terms of your life. The unbreakable mindset understands that fear is proof you are growing. It is a signal, a guide, and a catalyst all in one. Each moment of fear faced is a layer of weakness removed, a chain shattered, a limit exceeded. Fear becomes your ally when you stop running from it and start following its direction. It is the sharp arrow pointing straight to the next version of yourself. The one stronger, braver, and more capable than the version who hesitated yesterday. Your fear is not the wall, it is the door you must walk through. Chapter 5. The Pain of Growth. Pain is the language of progress. It speaks when comfort fails, when ease stops teaching, when repetition and routine are no longer enough. Every ache in your body, every knot in your mind, every moment of emotional strain is not punishment, it is feedback. It is proof that your boundaries are being stretched, that the shell of your old self is cracking, that you are stepping into a new, uncharted version of who you can be. Growth never comes softly. It does not knock politely and ask permission. It storms in with discomfort, challenge, and relentless testing. Pain is inevitable, but the meaning you give it determines whether it becomes your undoing or your upgrade. The world tells you to avoid pain, to seek comfort, to preserve ease. The weak self listens to that advice. The strong self recognizes it as a trap. Comfort may feel good today, but it costs tomorrow. It keeps you small, it keeps you predictable, it keeps you behind the curve of your potential. Pain, on the other hand, is honest. Pain doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about your excuses. It reveals exactly where your strength begins and where your limits lie. Every failure, every setback, every sleepless night spent wrestling with doubt and fatigue is a teacher, a sculptor, a guide. Pain doesn't punish. You punish yourself by ignoring it. Pain purifies. It strips away excuses, it exposes weakness, and it forces action. Every person who achieves greatness has paid the tax of pain. Athletes feel it in muscles that burn with exhaustion, in joints that scream under repeated effort, in the quiet hours before sunrise when the world sleeps and they train alone. Entrepreneurs feel it in sleepless nights, in failures, in financial strain, in the weight of responsibility that seems unbearable until they move through it. Artists feel it in rejection, in doubt, in the long hours of practice and failure before the masterpiece appears. Pain is universal. It is the common denominator between mediocrity and mastery. How you respond to it determines which side of that divide you occupy. Pain is also a mirror. It shows you what matters, what is holding you back, and what you are willing to fight for. It exposes the weaknesses of habit, the lies of comfort, and the limits you have accepted as truth. To ignore it is to remain small. To embrace it is to evolve. Each time you step into discomfort rather than avoid it, you break a chain, rewrite a belief, and expand your capacity. It is not easy. It will hurt. You will question yourself, you will doubt, you will feel the old self screaming for retreat. That is the process of purification. That is the forge where resilience is hammered into your being. Pain is not only physical, it is emotional, mental, and spiritual. It arrives in failure, in embarrassment, in isolation, in confrontation with truths you would rather ignore. The instinct is to resist, to numb, to distract, to flee. But every attempt to avoid it prolongs weakness. The unbreakable approach pain as a teacher, as a signal, as an ally. They don't seek suffering, but they do not shy from it. They understand that only by enduring what others cannot endure do they achieve what others cannot achieve. Pain is not your enemy. It is your proving ground. It is the threshold between the person you were and the person you are becoming. The process of growing through pain is deliberate. It requires awareness, courage, and persistence. Awareness to see the lesson embedded in each struggle. Courage to face the discomfort without retreat. Persistence to continue step by step even when it seems unbearable. Every repetition of effort under strain, every moment you keep going when quitting would be easier, every choice to lean in rather than pull back compounds. You are sculpting strength, character, and resilience. Pain becomes the chisel and you are the artist. Pain also teaches patience. It shows that mastery is not immediate, that transformation is not instant, that evolution is a process measured in small victories, repeated over time. The tears, the failures, the nights spent wrestling with doubt are not wasted, they are investment. They are deposits into the account of your future self. Each moment of endurance makes the next challenge easier. Each confrontation with difficulty builds confidence in your ability to persist, and each act of resilience rewires your mind for higher performance. Remember, pain doesn't define you. Your response does. You can choose to let it break you or you can let it refine you. You can let it harden your bitterness or you can let it harden your resolve. You can let it reinforce your excuses or you can let it reinforce your excellence. Pain is unavoidable. Growth is optional. The difference between those who succeed and those who fail is not the presence of pain, but the willingness to engage with it, learn from it, and use it as fuel for transformation. Pain doesn't punish, it purifies. Endure it, learn from it, and let it forge the next version of you. Chapter 6. Discipline over motivation. Motivation is fleeting. It comes in waves, rising and falling with your mood, your energy, your surroundings. One day it floods you with enthusiasm, the next it disappears like mist. If you rely on motivation alone, you will be a slave to feeling, and feelings are unreliable, unpredictable, and often absent when you need them most. Discipline, on the other hand, is a constant. Discipline is not dependent on energy or inspiration. It is a choice, a system, a habit that moves you forward whether you feel ready or not. Motivation may spark you into action, but discipline carries you across the finish line every single time. The difference between the average and the exceptional is rarely talent. It is the relentless commitment to action. The exceptional show up when they do not feel like it, they execute when every cell of their body protests, and they honor their goals even when motivation deserts them. You do not need to feel like it. You do not need the perfect mood, the ideal circumstances, or the lightning bolt of inspiration. All you need is discipline, a structured approach, and the decision to act repeatedly no matter what. Discipline is freedom because it liberates you from the tyranny of your own emotions. It makes success inevitable by making action automatic. Every day presents the same choice. Do you move or do you stall? The weak self waits for motivation, for the right moment, for the perfect alignment of mood and circumstance. The strong self does not wait. It acts. It executes. It follows the system, the schedule, the routine that guarantees progress even when the mind screams to stop. Discipline is the engine that keeps you moving forward when motivation is gone, when doubt arises, when excuses press for attention. Discipline is not easy. It is not glamorous. But it is the only reliable path to mastery. Look at every high achiever you admire, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, leaders. They all have one thing in common: a commitment to discipline that overrides feeling. They do not rely on fleeting bursts of inspiration. They show up when no one is watching, when no one will praise them, when it feels pointless. They do the work anyway. Discipline transforms action from something dependent on emotion to something that is automatic, unavoidable, and unstoppable. It removes the drama, it removes the excuses, and it builds momentum that compounds silently, invisibly, but powerfully. Discipline is also identity. The person who acts out of discipline is not asking, "Do I feel like it?" They are saying, "I am the kind of person who follows through." Repetition of disciplined action rewires the brain, creating neural pathways that favor consistency over comfort, commitment over hesitation, action over procrastination. With time, the act of doing becomes second nature. You no longer have to think about it, you simply execute. Motivation becomes unnecessary, irrelevant, and even inconsequential. Discipline does not wait for the spark. It is the fire that never dies, that burns steadily, that illuminates the path forward regardless of circumstance. Discipline also teaches patience and resilience. It conditions the mind to endure discomfort, to act in spite of resistance, and to persist when results are delayed. Motivation often abandons you in the face of struggle, but discipline endures. It is the habit of showing up, of putting in the work, of honoring your word to yourself. Every repetition, every commitment kept, every routine executed strengthens the neural circuits that define your identity. You stop being someone who hopes for progress. You become someone who produces it, daily, consistently, relentlessly. Every action taken without motivation compounds. The more you act while unmotivated, the easier it becomes to continue. Every streak of disciplined effort reinforces your identity, fortifies your mind, and proves to yourself that you are capable of more than you imagined. You begin to understand that motivation is a tool, not a requirement. Motivation sparks. Discipline sustains. One ignites, the other carries you across the battlefield of growth, uninterrupted and unyielding. Remember, discipline is freedom, not restriction. It is not about punishing yourself, nor is it about living a joyless life. It is about creating a system where success is inevitable, where action is automatic, where results follow consistency. When you make discipline your default, you stop relying on fleeting feelings, you remove the excuses, and you gain mastery over your own life. The more you practice discipline, the less you need motivation. The more you honor your commitments, the more you realize that freedom is built on structure, that power comes from consistency, and that mastery is earned by showing up every single day. Discipline isn't restriction, it's freedom. Act, repeat, and let consistency be your unshakable foundation. Chapter 7. Detach or be controlled. Most people live as prisoners of their own emotions. Every disappointment, every insult, every minor inconvenience pulls them in 1,000 directions, and they follow without question. They let anger dictate their words, anxiety dictate their actions, and frustration dictate their choices. They give their power away to everything outside themselves, and with each overreaction, they reinforce the chains that bind them. Emotional hijacking is the silent thief of strength, the invisible force that steals focus, clarity, and control. The mind that reacts first, before thinking, before observing, surrenders to chaos. Detachment is the antidote, the mental armor that keeps you grounded when the world seeks to unbalance you. Detachment does not mean numbness. It does not mean apathy or avoidance. It means awareness. It means recognizing that emotions are indicators, not instructions. When fear rises, it signals a challenge. When anger flares, it signals a boundary has been crossed. When frustration boils, it signals resistance or unmet expectations. None of these emotions require instant action. None of them demand that you give your energy or your peace away. Detachment allows you to observe without absorbing, to respond without reacting, to act with intention rather than impulse. The moment you stop letting emotions steer your decisions, you reclaim power over your life. The unbreakable understand this principle. They see the world clearly because they do not chase emotional highs or run from emotional lows. They allow feelings to exist, they note them, they learn from them, but they do not hand the keys of their mind to these transient states. Detachment is mental discipline in action. It is the conscious decision to remain composed, to pause, to assess before acting, to choose response over reaction. Every situation that could have triggered chaos instead becomes a training ground for clarity. The more you practice detachment, the stronger your mental resilience becomes. You start to realize that nothing outside your mind can dictate your inner state unless you allow it. Real-world application of detachment is everywhere. Leaders who make calm decisions during crises do not act without feeling. They act without being controlled by feeling. Athletes who maintain focus under pressure do not ignore their nerves. They acknowledge them but do not allow them to dictate performance. Entrepreneurs navigating uncertainty do not succumb to fear. They assess, adapt, and advance. Detachment is what separates the controlled from the controlled, the calm from the reactive, the victorious from the defeated. Emotional freedom is power, and it is cultivated through practice. Detachment also sharpens judgment. When you are not constantly reacting, your perception becomes clearer. You see situations as they are, not through the lens of emotional distortion. You identify opportunities and threats with precision. You make decisions based on logic, experience, and strategy, not impulse, stress, or over-identification. The more detached you become, the more control you have over outcomes, because control does not come from manipulating the world, it comes from mastering yourself. The mind that is not shaken by every emotional gust is unstoppable. The practice of detachment is simple in concept but demanding in execution. Notice your triggers, label your emotions, step back mentally, breathe, and respond thoughtfully. Repetition strengthens this skill. Each moment of restraint reinforces the neural pathways that favor observation over reaction, clarity over chaos, composure over compromise. Each act of controlled response is a deposit into your mental bank account, building credit that pays dividends when the storms of life inevitably arrive. Detachment transforms emotional noise into actionable data. It converts chaos into calm. It converts weakness into strength. Remember, the alternative is being controlled. Every unchecked emotion, every impulsive reaction, every surrender to feeling without awareness is a loss of power. Life will continue to test you with failure, insult, and frustration. You cannot prevent it, you cannot avoid it, and you cannot demand its absence. The only control you have is over your stance, your response, your inner state. Detachment is not passive. It is the ultimate act of command, command over self, command over energy, command over destiny. Emotions are signals, not steering wheels. Observe, don't obey. Choose response over reaction and reclaim your power. Chapter 8. Silence is a superpower. Silence is more powerful than most people realize. In a world addicted to noise, reaction, and instant feedback, the ability to pause, to withhold, To remain quiet is a form of mastery. Every word spoken in haste, every argument joined in emotion, every response made without thought chips away at your clarity, your energy, and your influence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. It is the shield that protects your mind from chaos, the lens that brings clarity to confusion, and the lever that shifts power back into your control. When you learn to hold back, to observe instead of reacting, you gain perspective that others sacrifice for the illusion of participation. You begin to see patterns, motivations, and consequences that remain invisible to those who constantly speak or react. Silence allows you to gather intelligence, to assess risk, and to choose action with precision rather than impulse. It is a form of mental discipline that trains patience, strengthens judgment, and sharpens perception. In silence, you are not inactive. You are preparing, evaluating, and positioning yourself to act in alignment with purpose, not emotion. The world often equates speaking with strength and reaction with courage, but this is a trap. Loudness can mask insecurity, and reaction can betray weakness. Those who respond to every provocation expend energy unnecessarily, they scatter focus, and they invite chaos to dictate the terms of engagement. Silence, in contrast, conserves energy and amplifies power. It commands attention without demand, it influences without aggression, and it communicates control without effort. The strongest minds know when to speak, when to act, and when to remain still. In their restraint, others reveal themselves, mistakes become obvious, and opportunities present themselves with greater clarity. Silence is also a mirror. When you refuse to engage with drama, insults, or distractions, the noise collapses under its own weight. People overreact to your silence because it denies them the chaos they rely on to manipulate or provoke. Your calm presence becomes a stabilizing force, a reflection of composure, and a demonstration of self-control. It signals that you are not easily shaken, that your focus is not easily diverted, and that your energy is not for sale. In silence, you teach others about your boundaries without confrontation, about your priorities without lecture, and about your strength without display. Practicing silence requires intentionality. It is not merely about withholding words. It is about managing attention, conserving energy, and choosing engagement with precision. Each moment you resist reacting to provocation reinforces your mental resilience. Each pause before speaking trains patience. Each deliberate silence strengthens your influence. Over time, this habit rewires your mind to prioritize thoughtful action over impulsive reaction, measured response over emotional indulgence, and clarity over chaos. Silence becomes not just a tactic but a lifestyle, a tool for dominance in an environment designed to distract and provoke. Real-world examples are abundant. Leaders who remain silent during crises often command more respect than those who fill the room with frantic directives. Negotiators who speak less often gain more concessions than those who argue constantly. Athletes who wait calmly for the right moment outperform those who react prematurely. Silence is the framework that enables precision, focus, and control. Those who master it wield influence effortlessly because they are not consumed by the need to be heard. They are guided by the need to act strategically. Silence also cultivates inner peace. When you stop giving your energy to every provocation, every opinion, every minor disturbance, you reclaim mental bandwidth. You create space to think, to reflect, and to plan. Your mind becomes less cluttered, your emotions less reactive, and your actions more intentional. Stillness is strength. It is the calm at the center of the storm, the anchor in turbulent seas, and the compass that guides you through chaos without being swept away. The alternative to silence is constant reaction. Reacting to every insult, criticism, or disruption surrenders control. It scatters focus, drains energy, and strengthens the power of others over you. Silence, on the other hand, restores control, fortifies clarity, and amplifies your authority. It is the superpower that distinguishes the truly powerful from the superficially loud. Learning it, practicing it, and living it transforms the way you engage with the world, turning every chaotic moment into a test of composure, and every potential distraction into a demonstration of strength. Stillness is strength. Hold your tongue, steady your mind, and reclaim control. Speak with intention or not at all. Chapter 9. Destroy your excuses. Excuses are the invisible chains that bind the mind to mediocrity. They are comforting lies whispered to justify inaction, rationalizations that allow weakness to persist. Every excuse begins small. I don't have time, I'm too tired, it's not the right moment. These seemingly harmless statements quietly erode ambition, dilute potential, and build a prison of self-deception. The mind that clings to excuses refuses to confront reality, avoids responsibility, and surrenders power to circumstance. Excuses are the enemy of progress, the shield of the uncommitted, and the fuel of regret. The unbreakable mind refuses to be seduced by excuses. It understands that circumstances are never perfect, that energy fluctuates, and that conditions will always conspire against consistent action. The difference between those who achieve and those who stagnate is the willingness to act despite imperfection. Excuses only thrive when you allow them to. Every time you blame conditions, people, or luck, you relinquish control over your life. The moment you take ownership, the moment you eliminate justification, you reclaim power. Execution replaces excuse. Action annihilates rationalization. Discipline silences justification. Excuses also disguise fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discomfort. They hide behind statements that sound reasonable but are deadly to progress. The person who clings to excuses convinces themselves they are wise, strategic, or patient, when in reality they are avoiding growth. Growth does not wait for comfort, nor does it accommodate hesitation. Every great achievement in history was preceded by resistance, discomfort, and risk. Those who succeed acted in spite of fear. They acted in spite of inconvenience. They acted in spite of every reason to delay. Excuses are nothing more than resistance dressed in language that feels safe. Execution, on the other hand, demands courage and consistency. The unbreakable do not negotiate with excuses. They confront them, expose them, and act anyway. They replace I can't with I will, I'll try later, with I start now. Every small act of doing what you said you would do chips away at weakness and fortifies self-respect. The mind that executes is no longer a slave to circumstance. It becomes a master of its reality. Each action taken without justification strengthens identity, reinforces confidence, and builds momentum that no obstacle can reverse. Excuses cannot coexist with consistent, deliberate action. Real-world examples are abundant. Athletes who skip workouts because of weather, energy, or mood will never reach elite levels. Entrepreneurs who delay decisions because of timing or market conditions fall behind those who act decisively. Leaders who rationalize inaction lose influence, while those who execute regardless of obstacle gain authority. The pattern is clear. Execution destroys excuses, and excuses protect weakness. The world does not reward reasoning, it rewards results. Every excuse surrendered is a step closer to mastery. Excuses are also contagious. When you allow them into your mind, they infect behavior, language, and choices. They make hesitation normal, fear acceptable, and delay habitual. The unbreakable mind treats excuses as intruders. They are observed, acknowledged, and immediately neutralized. The habit of action, repetition, and accountability becomes stronger than the habit of excuse. The more you act without justification, the less influence excuses have, and the more your identity aligns with results rather than rationalization. Eliminating excuses is not a one-time decision. It is daily, moment-to-moment practice. Every hesitation must be met with action, every rationalization countered with execution, every justification replaced by movement. The process is uncomfortable because it strips the mind of its crutches, exposing fear, insecurity, and weakness. But discomfort is the price of freedom. Action without excuse rewires the brain, reshapes identity, and reprograms the mind to operate on results, not justification. This is the path to real strength. Excuses are seductive because they are easy. They feel safe, comfortable, and rational. Execution is hard because it requires energy, courage, and consistency. But the reward is freedom, power, and respect. Most importantly, self-respect. The mind that acts without excuses is unshakable. Circumstance becomes irrelevant, fear becomes manageable, and obstacles transform into training grounds. Weakness cannot survive in an environment dominated by deliberate, excuse-free action. Excuses protect weakness, execution destroys it. Act decisively, act consistently, and let every word of justification fall silent before the roar of action. Chapter 10. Embrace loneliness. Loneliness is the crucible of transformation. Growth is never crowded, it is solitary. The moment you commit to becoming stronger, wiser, and more disciplined, the world around you will feel smaller, quieter, and sometimes empty. Friends who once understood you may not comprehend the changes you are undergoing. Conversations that once felt satisfying will feel shallow. Comforts that once lulled you into stagnation will feel irrelevant. This is not failure, it is evolution. The path to mastery, to unbreakable strength, to real self-development, is inherently solitary. Those who fear loneliness fear growth itself, because growth requires distance from distraction, detachment from comfort, and focus that cannot coexist with constant companionship. Loneliness is often mistaken for weakness. Society tells us that to be alone is to be incomplete, that connection defines value. But the unbreakable understand a different truth. Solitude is the arena in which greatness is forged. In moments of isolation, the mind sharpens, reflection deepens, and purpose crystallizes. Without constant noise, without the validation of others, without the crutch of comfort, you confront yourself fully. Every thought, every emotion, every impulse must be faced honestly. In this silence, in this solitude, you learn your true capabilities, your true limits, and your true potential. Loneliness is not emptiness, it is refinement. Real growth demands this distance. The person who seeks excellence must separate from distractions, from easy pleasures, from emotional dependencies that dilute focus. Isolation allows the unbreakable to observe themselves objectively, to evaluate their choices, to measure progress against their own standards rather than the opinions of others. It is a space where discipline, resilience, and self-mastery can be trained without compromise. The stronger you become, the more you realize that many relationships, routines, and comforts no longer serve your trajectory, they hold you back. Loneliness becomes not a curse, but a tool, a necessity for evolution. Loneliness also breeds courage. When you are alone, you cannot hide behind others, you cannot defer responsibility, and you cannot avoid your challenges. You must confront fears directly, face discomfort without distraction, and push limits without support. Every difficult decision, every uncomfortable action, every moment of mental resistance strengthens autonomy and sharpens resolve. The mind learns to rely on itself, to generate its own energy, to create its own momentum. This independence is the hallmark of unbreakable individuals. Loneliness is the forge in which self-reliance and inner strength are tempered, tested, and perfected. The unbreakable understand that evolution is selective. As you grow, certain relationships will fade, certain habits will die, and certain comforts will be left behind. This is not loss, it is liberation. By embracing solitude, you gain clarity, focus, and the mental space to cultivate the habits, thoughts, and discipline that define your future self. The more you practice being alone with your goals, your mind, and your purpose, the more immune you become to distraction, drama, and dependence. Loneliness trains resilience in ways companionship cannot, because it exposes the mind to its rawest, most honest state, forcing self-discipline, self-reflection, and self-reliance. Loneliness also intensifies awareness. Without constant noise and distraction, the subtle truths of life, your patterns, your weaknesses, and your strengths become visible. You notice the excuses you tell yourself, the comfort zones you cling to, and the limits you've unconsciously accepted. You confront the parts of yourself you've avoided. Every moment alone becomes an opportunity to refine identity, strengthen resolve, and reinforce purpose. The mind that can thrive in isolation will thrive in any environment, because it no longer depends on external validation, support, or stimulation. However, embracing loneliness is not about bitterness or withdrawal. It is about intentional separation for growth. It is a conscious decision to prioritize evolution over comfort, discipline over approval, and progress over companionship. The unbreakable understand that this solitude is temporary in experience but permanent in effect. It changes how they think, how they act, and how they perceive the world. The discomfort of being alone is the price for clarity, mastery, and power. Every moment of isolation is a deposit into the bank of mental resilience, emotional control, and unwavering focus. Ultimately, loneliness is the silent teacher. It strips away distraction, tests patience, strengthens self-reliance, and clarifies purpose. It shows you who you are without masks, without validation, without compromise. It is the refining fire of real growth. Those who embrace it do not become lonely, they become powerful, independent, and unshakable. The moments you feel the most alone are the moments you are evolving the most. The discomfort, the quiet, the emptiness, it is all shaping the person you are becoming, someone capable of withstanding challenge, pursuing vision, and living intentionally without surrender to the world's chaos. Isolation is not emptiness, it's refinement. Embrace solitude, sharpen your mind, strengthen your discipline, and let the loneliness sculpt the strongest version of yourself. Chapter 11. Suffer on purpose. There is a kind of pain that breaks you, and there is a kind that builds you. The difference is choice. Most people run from pain because they only know accidental suffering, the kind that blindsides you when life collapses. But the unbreakable know the secret. Pain, when chosen, becomes power. When you suffer on purpose, you take control of your transformation. You turn pain from punishment into practice. You turn every struggle into strength training for the mind. Voluntary discomfort, whether it's waking up early, pushing past exhaustion, or saying no to easy pleasure, is how you rewire your system for greatness. Comfort is the silent killer of potential. It lulls you into believing that ease equals happiness. But every great transformation, every true breakthrough begins where comfort ends. When you intentionally put yourself in the arena of difficulty, you activate the part of your brain built for dominance. You teach your mind that pain is not danger, it's data. That exhaustion is not failure, it's feedback. You teach yourself to remain calm in the storm, collected under pressure, and focused in chaos. That is not an accident. That is training. That is suffering on purpose. When you suffer by choice, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You become the architect of your evolution. Most people wait for life to test them, waiting until the job collapses, the relationship ends, or the world breaks them down. But the disciplined invite the test daily. They lift heavier than they must. They wake earlier than they want. They work when motivation disappears. They practice endurance not because life forced them to, but because they've decided to build the version of themselves that can never be broken. That's what separates the unshakable from the ordinary. They don't wait for pain, they pursue it with purpose. Suffering on purpose doesn't mean self-destruction. It means self-construction. It means choosing discomfort that builds character, not chaos that destroys it. It means using pain as a tool, not a trap. Every time you resist the urge to quit, every time you push through resistance, every time you endure instead of escape, you are adding another layer to your mental armor. You are teaching your brain to associate challenge with growth, not fear. That is how you condition your mind to handle anything life throws at you. You stop flinching at hardship because you've already trained in the fire. The world conditions people to seek pleasure, to avoid struggle, to escape effort. But easy comfort breeds weak minds. The unbreakable choose friction over ease, pressure over pleasure, consistency over comfort. Because they understand something simple and powerful: growth only lives in resistance. The more you deliberately expose yourself to discomfort, the more your nervous system adapts. Pain tolerance becomes resilience. Endurance becomes instinct. Self-control becomes identity. You are not just toughening your body, you are programming your mind. Suffering on purpose sharpens clarity. When you strip away comfort, distraction, and indulgence, you see yourself clearly. You see your limits, your fears, your excuses, all laid bare. You can't lie to yourself when you're under pressure. Pain tells the truth. It reveals what you really believe, how much you really want it, and what you're really made of. It humbles you, but it also builds you. It breaks down the ego while constructing the warrior beneath it. Every deliberate act of struggle, every cold morning run, every late night grind, every yes to difficulty, turns suffering into strength and strength into freedom. There's a deep peace that comes from chosen hardship. When you suffer intentionally, you begin to respect yourself differently. You look in the mirror and see someone who can endure, someone who can handle pain without panic. That self-respect becomes a shield. You no longer fear what others fear because you've already faced worse on your own terms. You've made suffering your ally. You've trained your mind to see pain as proof that you're alive, that you're still growing, that you're still fighting for the next level of yourself. Every time you choose to suffer, you move closer to mastery. Discipline grows. Focus strengthens. The gap between who you are and who you want to be begins to close. The process is simple but not easy. Wake up and do the thing you don't want to do. Repeat it daily. Accept discomfort as the price of evolution. Let the pain shape you but never stop you. The unbreakable understand this law. Pain is not the enemy, comfort is. You don't become strong by avoiding the fire. You become strong by standing in it. You don't develop resilience by wishing for easier days. You build it by surviving hard ones. You don't rise by seeking comfort. You rise by earning it through suffering that refines you. The mind that learns to suffer voluntarily becomes unstoppable because nothing life throws at it is unfamiliar. Every challenge feels like another repetition. Every pain feels like another lesson. So don't run from discomfort, schedule it. Don't pray for an easier life, train for a harder one. Don't curse the pain, thank it for shaping you. Each time you willingly endure, you build strength that can't be faked, discipline that can't be shaken, and confidence that can't be taken. This is how you become unbreakable, not by chance but by choice. Suffer by choice, not by chance. When pain becomes intentional, weakness becomes extinct. Every act of chosen struggle rewires you for strength, clarity, and control. Chapter 12. Turn anger into fuel. Anger is one of the most misunderstood forces in human behavior. Most people treat it like a liability, something to be hidden, suppressed, or apologized for. They believe that feeling anger is wrong, dangerous, or weak. But the unbreakable know a different truth. Anger is raw energy, and energy is neutral until it is directed. When channeled properly, anger becomes a catalyst, a fire that drives action, sharpens focus, and builds unshakable resolve. It is a signal, a message from your mind and body that something matters deeply, that something requires your attention, that boundaries have been crossed or standards ignored. Anger is not the enemy, it is a tool. The first step in using anger as fuel is awareness. Recognize it without judgment. Don't let it control your thoughts, but also don't deny its presence. Feel it fully because pretending it isn't there only gives it power over your subconscious. Every flare of anger is an opportunity to observe your limits, your expectations, and your non-negotiables. Ask yourself, why am I angry? What is this teaching me? What boundary is being violated? When you see anger as information rather than impulse, you take the first step toward mastery. You transform it from a reactive force into a proactive one. Next comes direction. Anger must be converted into action. Misused anger leads to rash decisions, damaged relationships, and lost opportunities. But directed anger fuels performance, discipline, and self-improvement. When you feel that surge of frustration at laziness, procrastination, or injustice, channel it into constructive motion. Work harder. Speak clearer. Push further. Run longer. Train stronger. Study deeper. Let the emotion be the spark, but let disciplined action be the engine. The difference between destruction and creation lies entirely in how you choose to apply that energy. Real-world examples are everywhere. Elite athletes, business leaders, and warriors do not pretend anger does not exist. They feel it, acknowledge it, and transform it into relentless pursuit. They use every slight, every failure, every insult, every setback as fuel for their focus. They do not let emotion dictate chaos. They let it dictate precision. The same raw power that could have destroyed them becomes the reason they achieve what others consider impossible. Every time you take that energy and convert it into measurable, productive action, you reinforce the habit of turning reaction into strategy. Anger also teaches boundaries. It reminds you of what you will and will not tolerate, from others and from yourself. When you respect this energy and use it consciously, It prevents compromise on standards and keeps you aligned with your goals. It forces self-respect, because the unbreakable never lets others dictate their peace. They let anger highlight injustice or inefficiency, then channel it into motion that strengthens them rather than weakens them. Each moment you feel anger, remember it is the compass pointing toward improvement, the signal directing your energy toward meaningful action. But harnessing anger requires discipline. You must avoid lashing out impulsively, avoid feeding it through rumination, and avoid using it as an excuse for behavior you would otherwise regret. Training your mind to acknowledge the emotion, extract its value, and act deliberately is the ultimate form of control. Every instance of mastery over this fire builds confidence, clarity, and a sense of unstoppable momentum. Anger, when trained, ceases to be a liability and becomes an accelerant. Finally, channeling anger fuels self-transformation. It is not about becoming a stoic who never feels. It is about becoming someone whose emotions serve their mission. Anger is the energy of resistance. Resistance against laziness, complacency, injustice, and weakness. Every time you convert that energy into constructive action, you are rewriting your habits, reinforcing your discipline, and strengthening your character. You are no longer a passenger in your emotional life. You are the operator. The unbreakable understand this deeply. The mind that can feel anger but not be ruled by it becomes invincible. It is agile, precise, and unstoppable. It transforms energy into execution, frustration into focus, and resistance into relentless forward motion. Anger is no longer a reaction. It is a resource. The moment you learn to use it instead of be used by it, every challenge, every conflict, and every slight becomes fuel for growth. Don't suppress it, direct it. Anger is power. Harness it, channel it, and let it propel you forward. Misused, it destroys. Mastered, it builds an unbreakable mind. Chapter 13. Rejection is redirection. Rejection is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. Most people see a no as a stop sign, a confirmation of inadequacy, a judgment on their worth. They take it personally, let it fester, and allow it to stunt their growth. But the unbreakable understand a deeper truth. Rejection is not a wall, it is a guide. It is a signal, a redirection, an invisible hand steering you toward the path you're meant to follow. Every no you encounter, whether in relationships, work, or life's opportunities, is a filter. It eliminates what is not aligned with your highest potential and redirects your energy toward what truly matters. Rejection is not punishment, it is precision. The first step in mastering rejection is changing perception. Stop internalizing it. Stop letting external opinions define your value. Every person who doubts you, every opportunity that passes, every door that closes is simply a mirror reflecting your current limits. It is a reminder of where you are, and more importantly, where you need to go. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what am I missing? Rejection becomes data, not defeat. It becomes information, not insult. It tells you which areas require improvement, which paths require persistence, and which directions are aligned with your growth. Rejection also teaches resilience. Each refusal, each criticism, each no, is an opportunity to develop toughness. The unbreakable don't crumble, they analyze, adjust, and return stronger. They understand that progress is not linear and that every setback is a setup for a greater comeback. Real growth lies not in unchallenged acceptance but in the repeated confrontation with limits. The world will not hand you success, it will test your persistence. Rejection is the test. The ones who learn to respond instead of retreat turn barriers into stepping stones. They do not waste energy mourning doors that close. They build momentum toward doors that open. Real-world examples abound. Entrepreneurs face thousands of rejections before their breakthroughs. Athletes endure losses after losses before winning championships. Artists are turned down by galleries and critics countless times before creating masterpieces. Each rejection is a lesson in disguise, a signal that you are still on the journey, still refining your craft, still stretching beyond your comfort zone. Those who allow rejection to stop them remain ordinary. Those who allow rejection to redirect them become unstoppable. Rejection also sharpens focus. It forces clarity about your mission, your goals, and your values. When someone says, No, it is a filter. Some opportunities are not for you, some people are not for you, some paths are not for you. Instead of resisting it, embrace it. Let rejection prune what is unnecessary so your energy can flow entirely into what matters. Each redirection removes distraction, intensifies purpose, and accelerates growth. You become like a laser, focused, relentless, and impossible to divert from your trajectory. Another layer of mastery comes from gratitude. Thank those who reject you because they are unknowingly guiding you toward higher ground. Their doubt forces introspection, fuels motivation, and inspires innovation. Every no is an invitation to level up, to refine your approach, to become someone who can no longer be denied by life. The unbreakable don't view rejection as judgment. They view it as instruction. Every refusal teaches patience, perseverance, and precision. Every setback strengthens resolve and deepens commitment. Finally, rejection builds independence. When you stop seeking validation and begin interpreting rejection as redirection, you reclaim control over your life. You no longer rely on external approval to define action. You internalize standards. You trust your path. You continue moving forward, adjusting as necessary, unaffected by fleeting opinions or temporary setbacks. In this way, rejection becomes a teacher, a guide, a compass pointing toward self-mastery. The unbreakable understand that the no is never personal, it is directional. Each refusal, each closed door, each obstacle is simply the universe guiding them toward the higher version of themselves. They use it, they learn from it, and they move forward with purpose. Rejection is not a stop, it is a redirection, a recalibration, a subtle nudge toward alignment with destiny. It is feedback, not failure. Rejection isn't failure, it's feedback. Every no is a lesson disguised as limitation. Learn from it, pivot with it, and use it to rise. The more you embrace rejection as guidance, the faster you grow, the stronger you become, and the closer you move to the person you are meant to be. Chapter 14. Become your own competition. Comparison is one of the quietest killers of progress. It lulls the mind into doubt, envy, and distraction. Most people measure their worth by the successes of others, the speed of their peers, the highlights of someone else's life, and in doing so, they hand over control of their confidence. They forget the simple truth. The only person you are meant to compete with is the one staring back at you in the mirror. The unbreakable understand this principle deeply. They measure growth against their past selves, not against the curated victories of others. Every day becomes a test of improvement, every decision an opportunity to outpace yesterday. The first step in becoming your own competition is awareness. Notice how often you compare yourself to others. Every time you scroll, watch, or listen and feel inadequate, pause. Ask yourself, is this comparison productive or is it draining? Is it inspiring action or is it sapping momentum? The unbreakable use comparison as a mirror, not a measuring stick. They see where they can improve, where they've progressed, and where their focus should remain, on their own trajectory. By turning attention inward, they reclaim energy and direct it toward meaningful action rather than futile judgment. Self-accountability replaces envy with empowerment. When the only metric is personal progress, every action gains significance. Did you train harder than yesterday? Did you learn more? Did you stretch a little further outside comfort? These questions become the compass. Every achievement becomes a checkpoint, every failure a lesson. You begin to track performance, habits, and effort, not someone else's results. Your goals align with your potential, your growth becomes measurable, and your confidence is rooted in tangible proof, not external validation. Real-world examples illuminate this principle. Elite athletes rarely focus on others' stats. They analyze their own performance. Great artists focus on refining their craft daily, comparing their work to yesterday, not the gallery next door. Entrepreneurs measure progress in iterations, learning from mistakes, improving systems, and outpacing their past selves, not competitors. In every domain, those who dominate internally outperform those who chase externally. Competition with the outside world is endless and uncontrollable. Competition with yourself is infinite and actionable. This mindset transforms struggle into strategy. When the only person you aim to beat is your former self, Every difficulty becomes a challenge, every obstacle an opportunity to rise. You stop feeling resentment when someone succeeds. You see it as information, as proof of what is possible, not as judgment on your current state. You focus on your habits, your execution, your consistency. You become relentless because self-improvement is a game you can never truly lose. Comparison drains energy because it seeks validation externally. Self-accountability multiplies power because it relies on internal metrics. By competing with yourself, you eliminate distraction, you eliminate ego, and you eliminate the need for approval. You learn to take responsibility for effort, action, and results. You learn that growth is a reflection, not a race. The more you measure against yourself, the more disciplined, focused, and unstoppable you become. The unbreakable know that every better-than-yesterday moment compounds over time. Small wins accumulate, habits solidify, and confidence becomes unshakable. You outgrow fear, doubt, and hesitation because you are focused entirely on the only person who truly matters, the version of you that existed yesterday. This mindset turns every day into a victory, every challenge into progress, and every struggle into a benchmark for improvement. Your only rival is your reflection. Stop looking outward for validation or measurement. Look inward, compete daily, and make yourself better than you were before. Outpace yesterday, and no one else will ever outrun you. Growth is personal, relentless, and unstoppable when your only competition is the person you see in the mirror. Chapter 15. Become the person you fear to be. The scariest version of yourself is often the one you avoid. It is the version that doesn't waver under pressure, that doesn't hesitate when action is required, and that doesn't allow emotion to dictate behavior. It is the version that speaks softly but carries unstoppable force, that observes calmly while others panic, that acts decisively while the world dithers. This is not a fantasy. It is a possibility. It is who you were meant to become. And yet, most people shy away from it. They fear the discipline it demands, the discomfort it embraces, the isolation it requires. They fear the strength, clarity, and power that would inevitably come with stepping fully into themselves. Fear is a signal, not a barrier. It is the indicator of untapped potential. The fear of becoming that person, the one who is unshakable, focused, and dominant in silence, is the very signpost pointing toward your next evolution. Every hesitation, every self-doubt, every "I can't," is just a whisper of the fear that your higher self inspires. Those who succeed, those who build unbreakable minds and lives of impact, are the ones who lean into that fear. They stare it in the face, recognize it as the path forward, and move anyway. They do not wait for courage. They create it with action, habit, and repetition. To become the person you fear to be, you must first strip away excuses. Comfort, distraction, and approval-seeking are the anchors that keep you chained to mediocrity. Every time you surrender to convenience, you reinforce the weak version of yourself. The one that plays small, that avoids responsibility, that panics under stress. But when you choose discomfort, embrace challenge, and act under pressure, you step closer to the person your fear once warned you about. Discipline becomes your scaffolding, focus becomes your lens, and emotional mastery becomes your armor. Each day of deliberate action compounds, sculpting the strength and clarity you once imagined but never dared to inhabit. Real-world examples are all around us. Leaders who make ruthless decisions in silence, athletes who train in obscurity while others sleep, creators who produce relentlessly despite criticism, are all versions of themselves they once feared. They feared the rigor, the isolation, the intensity, but they became it anyway. And in becoming it, they unlocked a level of influence, respect, and capability most people never even imagine. The fear you feel today is the blueprint of your power tomorrow. Avoid it and you stagnate. Embrace it and you evolve. Becoming the person you fear is not an instant transformation. It is daily, incremental, and relentless. It is showing up when no one is watching, acting when you do not feel like it, and holding yourself accountable to standards that frighten your old self. Each act of courage, each decision aligned with your highest potential, each moment you act while others hesitate, reinforces the neural pathways of strength, clarity, and focus. The mind and body learn to perform under stress, to observe without reacting, to move with precision when chaos swirls around. The people who fear their own potential are the ones who limit themselves the most. They never see how much power they carry because they have conditioned themselves to shrink in comfort, to avoid discomfort, to remain small. But you have a choice: to continue being the familiar, weak version of yourself, or to step deliberately into the person who commands respect, wields focus, and moves like a silent force the world cannot stop. Fear exists to guide you toward this transformation. It is the mirror reflecting the person you were always meant to become, a version so strong, so calm, so disciplined that nothing can derail them. Every step you take toward that version requires courage, clarity, and repetition. It is in choosing discomfort, in embracing isolation, in acting decisively despite doubt, that you forge yourself. And as you do, the fear itself transforms, from something that paralyzes into something that propels. You realize that the person you once feared was never external, it was internal. It was the higher self waiting for permission to exist, waiting for action to ignite it, waiting for discipline to animate it. You are your fear refined. Do not run from the person you fear becoming. Lean into it, act as them, live as them, and step into the clarity, strength, and focus you once thought impossible. Fear is not your enemy, it is your guide. The unbreakable life begins the moment you stop fearing the power within yourself and start living it fully. Real self-development is not pretty. It's not easy. It's not quick. It's painful. It's lonely. It's war. You've learned that comfort is the cage, pain is the teacher, and discipline is the key. You've seen that strength doesn't come from success. It comes from surviving yourself. Every day your weaker self will whisper for mercy. Don't listen. Kill it again. You don't need to be inspired. You need to be responsible. Stop chasing motivation. Start chasing mastery. Stop fearing pain. Start using it. The world doesn't need another comfortable person. It needs another unstoppable one. Your challenge begins now. Become the person you fear to be.